Hey, besties. How you guys doing? We back for another daily live. I am your host, Mix Mercury, the Astro Himbo, and today we are talking about Venus and Scorpio with my special guest, Semaj Zion. Hey, Semaj, I'm gonna pull you up to the stage.
Hi.
That was so cute.
The switch is the camera flip is gonna do something.
Oh, you can in the settings, if you click on the settings, you can flip it because I have to flip my screen up. Yeah, you should be able to do that. But
Hi.
welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you for being here. Please tell the people who you are. If there's any particular way you'd like to name or introduce yourself.
I don't know who I am, Winter. You can't ask me that. Okay, I'm kidding. Hi y'all, I'm Semaj Zion. Either one is fine. I'm a tarot reader, astrologer, sidereal astrologer. Yeah, I just like to read charts and interpret things and make language and talk about interesting topics. So that is why I'm here today.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it was actually Samaj's idea to talk about Venus and Scorpio today, which I believe Venus just entered Scorpio yesterday.
It did.
And that is my Venus return. I have Venus and Scorpio natally, as many of you already know. Conjunct Jupiter and Pluto, if you count that bad bitch as well. And I actually also have Scorpio rising with Venus there in my solar return. And I believe Samaj also has Scorpio rising in their solar return as well. So
I do.
cosplaying as a Scorpio this year.
I literally am, and it's been the most interesting experience. Also, why I kind of wanted to, because talk about Venus and Scorpio, because I'm in a Venus year and I'm Scorpio rising. So this transit is a big transit for me this year.
Yes.
And I'm a Libra rising, and it will make more sense if I talked about Libra or Venus or something. But I'm like, don't do what people would expect.
Oh, I love that. Very very on the nose Venus and Scorpio for you.
Yeah,
It's
because
a different thing.
yeah, I've been because we'll talk about it, but Venus and Mars are so similar in essence, even though they're opposites.
Yeah.
So I've just been thinking about that a lot. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I would love to just say hello to all the people in the chat. HP is here. Hey, HP. Scorpio in the fifth. We love to see it. Cancer rising.
Oh, I can see the comments. Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh my god.
They can talk to you too, boo.
Um,
Olivia, also Scorpio rising in the fifth. Hello, hello. Sydney is here. Oh, wait, not that one. Sydney is here with Scorpio rising, having a particularly spicy season so far. I assume tropical Scorpio season. So, mhm. And then Amissa is here. Hello, Mars and Scorpio in the ninth. Okay, we have a Mars native in the chat with us. Very cute. Love to see it. So, some fun facts about me and Samaje is that so I have Gemini rising with the moon there, as you guys may know. But my ascendant degree is at 28 degrees, and I believe Samaje's sun is at 28 degrees Gemini as well. So I really be feeling like this nigga got like a light on me in my life sometimes. They are the sun, and so I feel very kindred a lot of times speaking with them, and I'm very curious to see how this chat will go. I don't think we've gone live before, have we?
no.
Oh, first time for everything. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also just more I don't know more naturally, but in my heart and my body, I'm more of a cartomancy astrology girl. So Winter does, and I have Gemini, Winter's ascendant in my ninth house of astrology. And so Winter does really allow me to see myself as somebody who does astrology really well, because I'm really be like, wow, I love tarot all the time. Anytime I will do astrology, I'm like, I do astrology, I'm like, how can I incorporate tarot into this some way?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love having card girlies around me. And I use cards a little bit as well, but I'm more the opposite of like, how do I add tarot into my astro business? So it's always nice to have somebody to just do that for me. So I know you mentioned you wanted to pull a card for our chat today. So do you think it makes more sense? Oh, you already pulled it?
Oh, I did it.
Okay. Do you think it makes more sense to pull a card first and then describe Venus and Scorpio, or describe Venus and Scorpio and then pull the card?
I do the card first.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna pull a card first, and then we'll do a little placement breakdown.
Yeah, um I wrote notes for this.
Okay, I didn't. So
Um, um, it was just in the flow of my like journal state. I was journaling about something that it correlated to, so I was like, I should just be a little forward thinking.
yeah, is that the same notes that you shared with me the other day?
No, these are new ones.
A new one. So we're all gonna be surprised. And don't let Semaj fool y'all. Semaj is a great astrologer, also. Like, I'd be learning things from them as well. So this is a treat.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
And I would love it if y'all, while we're waiting, if you gave us a like on the video, just to show YouTube that we're here and we're queer, and to come hang out with us. That would be great. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, so we have 10 of swords.
Great. Uh,
And
so
temperance.
actually, never mind, guys.
No, this is actually great. And temperance as our guidance card.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I love these two cards together because the Ten of Swords is, even though it is very indicative of really dramatic endings or dramatic shifts, or like dramatic separations, or also just ruminating thoughts or ruminating ideas that you can't really get rid of or ration away. Like there's like feelings inside your body. That's why this like temperance is here. Temperance is a great card for it's Ten of Swords, because it's like, how do you manage really painful events that you know you cannot change? Temperance is like in smack dab in the middle of the devil and the tower. So
Oh.
it is like the kind of respite and relief that you do kind of find in kind of tumultuous situations. So in my like sign breakdown, like a planet inside a sign, like Venus doesn't do well in Scorpio, but like Scorpios need Venus, and Venus needs Mars. And so when they are in that kind of relationship, it doesn't really feel that placement will have like it's not easy to connect with with people who center their feelings and and what makes them uncomfortable, because that's usually something people walk over. But Ten of Swords really asks you to acknowledge what is uncomfortable inside your body and mind, and to realize the bodily implications of what's going on inside your mind. So yeah, I think these two are kind of on the nose, because you know you have a really good relationship when you know you could be really uncomfortable, when your body could be really fucking uncomfortable and reeling, and then they like have some kind of so some kind of way to put it, some kind of way to help you funnel it through, funnel anger, funnel frustration into something productive or fruitful, like venting or yelling or screaming or doing in a safe, contained in a safe way. Yeah, so yeah, that's my description of these two cards. What do you feel about them together, Ten of Swords and Temperance?
Well, it's interesting. Immediately, I'm thinking about Mars and Gemini being the ruler of Venus and Scorpio right now, at least for the next week or so. And then Mars will move into Cancer. So, this kind of like conversation around all the ruminating and thoughts in your head and kind of like running stuff into the ground mentally, but then needing to balance that out or transmute that into some kind of, I don't know if it needs to necessarily be actionable or what it is, but it's like I think what you were saying, incorporating the reality or the experience that the body is having instead of it just being in your head, because you can only think about it so much before something has to actually change. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about so far, and I wonder how much of a statement that is about like is this for the transit as a whole, you think, or do you think that shifts once Mars enters Cancer?
I think it's kind of holistically, because the thing with Scorpio is the sitting with the discomfort is kind
Mm,
of what I'm getting with these two cards, because what air in general is used to escape. Like it's used to like go somewhere different. It's used to be like, I can't necessarily change anything about this um, situation in front of me. So I will use my mind. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to not identify with it. This is not my reality. This is not what's going on. Or I'm going to, try to control the people around me. Not my responsibility. So yeah, this kind of like sitting with the discomfort is kind of what I feel like this Scorpio in general, but like Venus and Scorpio, like how do you like connect around what makes you discomfort, what makes you uncomfortable?
mm,
Which in my notes is I framed it as like who has been threatened the same way as you, who shares the same threats as you, and how do you find common ground in people who see threats in the same things?
ooh, I like that. Sitting with a discomfort. That's hard, and I like the description too of like air as a tool that allows us to escape. It's very much the case, especially like in Astro. We think about the air placements, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius as the ways that you can sometimes dissociate. Like when you can't physically leave, you can mentally leave,
Right.
or how thinking can be a way of like intellectually bypassing the feeling aspect of an experience you're having, or on the lighter side too, that's also escaping into art and creativity or ideas and the imagination in that sense, and how
Mhm.
that can also be a way to kind of think yourself out of your feelings, and at the same time, I guess with temperance, kind of saying like, well, you can only go so far before that starts to be counterproductive, and Ten of Swords as well, saying like there's an end to this coming up. And you also mentioned something about control. Can you say again one more time what that was? I'm thinking about Mercury and Libra right now as well, fresh in Libra.
Oh yeah, I was describing the different ways that the air signs escape. And for Libra, I said to control other people around you, which is the cardinal sign of responsibility, not having not wanting the responsibility or to take control, wanting other people to take initiative type thing. Uh,
Mm, yeah, kind of taking a back seat and putting it on everyone else
yeah.
instead of doing it yourself. What do you think about emotional manipulation?
Um, in terms of Libra.
I don't know. It just kind of came into my brain. I don't know if that's more Venus and Scorpio, or I'm thinking about all three of those guys kind of being tied up: Mercury and Libra, Venus and Scorpio, and Mars and Gemini.
Um, Yeah, I could definitely see that being for Venus and Scorpio, because like I think you wrote in the your guide that scapegoat is a word for it. Correct, right? Scapegoat is a word for Scorpio,
Absolutely.
and like your feelings being made to be the problem instead of the actual problem being addressed. It's like you as a person are the things that makes me, Taurus, or us uncomfortable. And so you need to change yourself in order to, belong or fit in or gain acceptance or whatnot. So, but that's not, because that's also like the same thing what Taurus experiences as well. But like there a lot, which I wanted to talk about my culture. Not that he's emotionally manipulative. Um, but I just know. Oh, thank you so much, of course. And thank y'all for listening to my tarot pool, my session.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. We'll keep tying it back to that, but I'm just acknowledging some of the comments here as well.
Yeah. So I definitely can tell that one, he's Pisces because he's in my sixth house, but he's also a Scorpio because all the kids I work at this school, we like do aftercare for the kids and whatnot. And it's like me, his name is Bino, and like my supervisor is Day. And all the kids always ask him, "Are you a boy or girl?
Oh.
Are you a boy or girl?" I can't tell. We're both gay. We're both gay niggas. He's bigger, dark skin, and he obviously can't. And femme, very femme. And he said, like they only asked me that because I look like a girl, or like I like act like a girl, and like they don't ask you to talk about me. Like they don't ask you, right? Like they don't ask you that. Like they don't question your identity or at all, or like question if you're a man or not, which I am not. But like I can pass as a man. I do pass as a man. And even though he does identify um, as a man, he does not get recognized or get seen or validated in that way because
Mm,
of the way he acts. So to tie it all together, like the Venus and Scorpio thing is that like his appearance, his identity, his Venus is in an uncomfortable place where he can't necessarily be accepted for what he is, Taurus, for what he looks like, quote unquote.
mm,
Um, and so like he's being made out to be the problem. Like he's experiencing all these questions that come as make his identity come into question, makes him question his identity, what he looks like, all these things, because other people are making him an issue. They can't not acknowledge what makes him different. Uh,
mm.
so like it is kind of because the problem isn't like that these kids only have the problem is that these kids only have concept of two genders. Like the problem is not the way that he shows up, the way that he looks or whatever. It's they're not being taught.
Yeah, they have a limited language and understanding that there's more than two genders based on societal expectations and norms.
Yes. So like you do kind of feel like you're being emotionally like I do feel like he's kind of being like because he always talks to me about these kind of things. Like he's 19, I'm 20. Like I can tell he's kind of like
Yeah, still kind of getting his bearings a little bit in the world and figuring out who he is.
yeah. So I'm kind of just seeing like how he feels like he is like literally a problem. Like he's talking
Mm,
like he's like what's wrong with me? Like why can't they just see me as a boy? Like why can't? So you do end up kind of feeling like you are an issue, like you are a problem, like
yeah,
who you are is something that needs to be changed. So
absolutely. I mean, I feel that like having Venus and Scorpio myself, and very much have always felt like I was a problem, or something I was doing was the problem, and so I needed to change. But before I get into that, I kind of set the stage a little bit more for Venus and Scorpio, and like why we're talking about some of these things. As Samaje mentioned, yes, Venus being our planet of connection and sameness and togetherness and commonalities, attachment, things that are pleasant and feel good and are nice, but also that point about sameness, I think, might be what I focus a little bit more on today. Whereas Scorpio is more about your differences, especially your emotional and physical differences, standing out, not blending in. I think about Scorpio people, like more times than not, either feel like or have actually been scapegoated as like the black sheep. Um, It's like a term people use to describe themselves a lot. And just something about you that doesn't fit in, and for whatever reason that disturbs other people. And so Scorpio is one of those signs, kind of like, Ten of Swords is one of those cards where sometimes there are just signs and experiences in life that aren't that great. And I kind of feel like Scorpio is one of the ones that is more complex than I think we give credit for it. Um, and that's not to say that there aren't any good things about Scorpio, or, to paint it in this black and white way, but the universal experience of Scorpio being both alienation and the sense of authenticity that can come from being true to yourself as well, and to lean into your differences. Like, those are two kind of heads of the same coin, I guess. So to have Venus be in this position where it's kind of connecting based on differences is tricky. And
Mhm.
so for myself, this is something I only recently really kind of understood about myself, was like from my Venus perfection last year. Actually, it was a Libra perfection, but Venus and Scorpio. And realizing like I have way more tolerance for other people's differences, and like being friends with people who are different from me. And I don't necessarily have to identify with them or resonate with them or agree with everything that they say. I can handle being friends with people who are different than me. But how often do I allow my own differences to actually like take up space, especially emotional space, in my relationships? And I wasn't really. There was a lot of me kind of hiding or withholding a lot of times, like my true feelings or my true thoughts about something, and kind of ignoring my own discomfort, as Samaj was mentioning earlier. Sitting with discomfort. I was like mostly sitting with discomfort in my relationships rather than actually like advocating for my comfort. So, coming around to this Venus return and getting a little bit marginally better at actually taking up emotional space in relationships, it's difficult because it does often feel like I'm the problem if I voice something that is genuinely uncomfortable or dissatisfying or harmful to me.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think most about with Venus Mars relationship is that you can't have Venus things without Mars things.
Yeah, facts.
uh, and so in the relationships, and it's like when like Scorpio is very needed because the uncomfortable parts of your feelings or the things that you think will probably make people upset will make the relationship better if you could. It will connect you more if you could connect over what you're doing. If you could talk over or think about or whatever with what makes you uncomfortable with a person, like to actually make them more desirable. If you could, like you said, lean into their differences, what makes you uncomfortable about them. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. It was reminding me of I won't give too many details, but if you remember, Samaje, we had a mutual friend in a situation in a group chat where I brought something to the group because we were all part of the conversation more or less, and saying like, hey, this thing made me kind of uncomfortable, the way that it was brought up, the way we were talking about it. Um, I just didn't think that was very cool, and that was a really difficult thing for me to do, but it was feeling like, me not speaking on this and just like holding on to it and like harboring resentment around it was then making me act weird in all of those relationships, like in all of our relationships with each other. So it's like to be able to voice and say like, hey, this made me kind of uncomfortable. I don't know about anybody else, but I wanted to say something about it and address it instead of just holding on to it like I would usually do. And then getting the response back that like, oh, I didn't realize that you felt that way. We didn't necessarily take it that way, but we appreciate you, speaking up and like advocating for yourself and how you feel. And that way we can actually like respond and, kind of adjust. And I was like,
Right.
that usually makes me like want to shrink the minute that somebody considers actually like adjusting or conforming to me, because then I feel like I'm, being an inconvenience, or now everybody else can't be themselves, or whatever it is, and a lot of that being my own projections, of course, but that idea of like you need Mars things and Venus things to create that like safety and
Right.
security in a relationship so that people are affected by you feels like a big part of it too.
Yeah. Because this sign pairing, Taurus and Scorpio, to me, is really about like, well, fixed signs, just in general, like your personhood, how your personhood is perceived, and how you curate your personality. Things that curate your personality and who you are, experiences that shape like your personhood, and relationships. Well, they're all.
No, friend, where'd you go? Hold on, they might be unplugged. Ah, okay. What happened?
Apparently, my Wi-Fi went out.
Oh shit!
It just like abruptly stopped.
It really did. You just like I was like, wait.
Yeah, we don't give a shit. We don't give a shit about what you gotta say, bro. Yeah, as I was saying before I got rudely interrupted.
Damn.
This time period is really about like safety and belonging in relationships, like holistically. Because the fixed aspect, and then the Venus and Mars aspect of it is like, who are you uh when you want to like somebody? Who are you when you do not like somebody? Who are you
Ooh.
when you want to like somebody but you cannot? Who are you when, like, what do you do in with these feelings of with other people that you have to deal with internally, which kind of goes back to this,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I've never thought about it like that. Like, who are you when you like somebody, and who are you when you dislike somebody? Or like when you want to like somebody but you can't. I
Yeah.
struggle with that one a lot.
Yes.
That ate me up a little bit. I'm like, oh no, because I've definitely many times in life gone out of my way to try and like somebody that I just didn't really like, and it's not even that it was like a
Yes.
hate or a disdain or anything like that, but it was just like a if I really considered how uncomfortable this dynamic makes me, like
Right.
just because I'm used to uncomfortable dynamics doesn't mean that all of my dynamics need to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Like it's okay for me to say, you know what? I think this person is just not for me. And it doesn't have to be like a moral failing on that person or on me, because a lot of times I feel bad
Right.
rejecting other people. It's like one of my biggest areas of growth. And so learning how to navigate that without going full like Scorpio Mars in the sense of like, no, there needs to be like a big problem here so
Right.
I can blow up the relationship and dip out, instead of just being like, you know what? I'm gonna head out. Y'all be well.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like one of the um, common things that I like see in my like when I'm writing about when Scorpio things are happening,
Hmm.
um, it's like I really need to know what I like and what I do not like, because I end up in situations
Facts.
where like I clearly like should not have ever been in a relationship with you. I clearly never should have, without what I'm talking about. Like I never really liked you in the beginning. Like it was, and I wonder just how much of that comes from like the Scorpio part of not being accepted for like a large part of your life, and just choosing, you know, uh, anything that feels good instantly, kind of trying the Cancer thing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you know what it kind of is, because I'm reading what Netta is saying here. Like my brain will question why, my body internals will be like, absolutely not, my love, just stay away. Like that's so real. Oh, then my brain just went like 10 different ways. Let me go back to the one thing I wanted to say first, not come back to the others. Uh what was the last thing you just said?
Um, I don't remember. Is
Okay.
it is it how our brains work?
Yes.
In real life, how we talk all the time.
the indie be indieing. So basically I'm thinking about the rejection, the lifelong experience of rejection. So yeah, so there's like I know for me there can be a big feeling of not wanting to do to other people what was done to me. So like because I want everyone else to be open and accepting of me, I'm like open and accepting of everyone else. And I phrase it that way specifically because I'm thinking about the Gemini stuff, in my chart and maybe thinking about Mars and Gemini right now as the ruler of this placement and how like yes, being like open and being curious and wanting to answer this question like Netta is saying like, "Well, why? Why do I feel this way about this person?" And then kind of like just having to fuck around and find out like I'm very hard-headed in that way. I'll see a red flag and be like, maybe I'll do it anyway for the bit. Like I want to do it for the story and see how it plays out. And then sure enough, it ends up being some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, not to tell on myself having Venus conjunct Jupiter, but it is a little bit of that like this conversation that's been going around about people wanting to feel the spark in a relationship early on and how, people are very very beholden to the spark. It has all of this meaning and something I've learned a lot through a lot of what I've learned about relationships and attachment in general is that sometimes, more likely than not, if you feel this kind of electric, just like almost captivating spark with someone that you barely know
It,
really early on,
you a little bit too well.
yeah, it's like it's hitting like that because it's familiar and you're about to go on a whole journey of attachment drama that's gonna feel like, oh, good, this shit again. This always happens to me with these people because there's something
Yeah.
in that person that feels exciting because it is a little bit dangerous. Like you know what it is, and so
They literally just. Can I put this up on them? Yeah, they literally
oh,
just spark is danger.
yeah, you in danger, girl. Like,
Yes, yes. I also think that kind of aligns with what I was writing about Scorpio being like threat detection.
yes,
Like, because a spark is saying like, oh, this is something that's good. This is something that I really want to go into, but it's actually like you in danger, girl. Like you are. It's replicating something that you've already, experienced and been on. So
like it's spicy for a reason. It's hitting your nervous system like that for a reason. It's a foreshadow into saying, yeah, this is about to be a situation that you probably don't want to deal with. And where there's sparks, there's fire. And
right.
do you really want something to combust or do you want it to, do you want it to last? And like sometimes you do just want to have a good time. But I think the cost sometimes is not the cost like emotionally and then having an added traumatic experience or traumatic relationship doesn't necessarily bode well for future relationships when you are trying to chill and can't because your body is seeing those threats everywhere. Like, well, last time when I felt like this, I was supposed to get the fuck out and I didn't. And now I got anxiety all the time because I don't trust myself to perceive threats accurately. But then there's also,
Right.
like we were saying, the emotional manipulation of maybe you were trying to like point these things out early on and then being told that, oh, it's not a big deal, you're making a big deal out of nothing, being dismissed, having those feelings dismissed, and now you just don't know which way is up.
Yeah. What do you think about Mars being in uh, Gemini versus Cancer?
um well, you have Mars and Gemini.
I do. My
So I'm
like
curious your thoughts on it, but um
my 6 year Mars return is here.
God, yeah, the long ass one too. I don't know. I feel like the experience I'm having of Mars being in my first house and also having the moon there and knowing Mars is going to move into a moon ruled sign, right? Like there's a lot of there are a lot of ways that I'm just restless during this transit and I like yes, my mind is going, but it's really my body is going because if I sit for too long, then I got to deal with all these thoughts. And so, like, if I were to sit here and smoke, then all of those thoughts that I'm kind of running from all come to the front of my mind, and then I have to deal with them. And then it turns into a physical thing of like all the tension in my body and all of the pain sometimes in my body, or just like all of the repressed feelings that if I were to let myself have that complete thought, then I have to deal with how I feel about those thoughts. Where normally I kind of just think the thoughts and logic and rational and then move on. But it hits different whenever the feeling actually comes up when I let myself stay with a singular thought. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, for sure. You get more into it, more deep into a certain.
Yeah, like it becomes real.
Right.
Instead of just like maybe a story, because I've noticed that like it's easy for me to kind of live. I was really bad about this when I was younger. I'm getting a little bit better the older I get and then the longer I'm in therapy, but I do kind of like live life like I'm in a story that I'm writing. And
Mm,
so I always have stuff to talk about on based on some experience that I had that I again did for the bit. But then when the reality of that experience is like felt in my body, then it's like, oh, that actually kind of fucked me up. And you know how it is with Scorpio people and like going through experiences that other people hear and they're like, that was kind of fucked up. And then Scorpios are like, that was like par for the course for me. But
yeah, I definitely do the exact same thing.
oh.
I have hella Gemini placements. Um, but for me, that placement was a lot because I have it conjunct the sun. It was a lot about my dad, yeah, using, power. Knew more and using that over me to, control and manipulate me into doing what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Mm. And so it's always this focus on what is being said. It's always this focus on what's being said to me, and not necessarily what I feel about it.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of like Libra trine to me, is that like air signs are not about like you as a person. Like yes, they're about like all your plans are about you, but like the point is to remove yourself from the context from all within which you live.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so true. The information without context. I was talking about that. Was it not yesterday, Friday, when I was talking about Mars and Gemini. Because it's true, like you can hear something or, have someone respond to you in a way that's just again dismissive in that not taking into consideration the full background and history and everything else of what am I trying to say? Like the full I don't know. It's like if someone tells you a story about like something they're going through with their partner, and they tell you just like the back and forth conversation they were having over text, and you're reading the text, and you're like, "Oh, why would they say that to you?" Or "Why? What is going on here?" And then you find out, oh, there's actually like a whole bunch of other stuff happening outside
Right.
of that one screenshot that then changes the story of the screenshot. So that feels, yeah, very very mutable. And so then whenever you're trying to, as a Gemini person, like trying to get like a second opinion or a third or a fifth or a 10th opinion or perspective rather on your situation, like how often is that really just us trying to get permission to feel like whatever it was that happened was fucked up?
Yeah.
you know? I do that a lot. I don't know about you. I'm always like, I have to ask 50 million people instead of just trusting that, like, do I feel uncomfortable? Okay, well, then that made me uncomfortable. It doesn't really matter if
Right.
it makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about just with Mars being in Gemini, with the Scorpio transits. Is that like how much information do you need to discern whether something is
Yeah.
dangerous? Um, do you like what perspective or what voice is telling you that something is safe when it may be dangerous, or that something is dangerous when it may be safe? With the whole Venus and Scorpio thing, is like, even if something makes you uncomfortable, like it's important to, lean in and have a curiosity. It's like, is it, am I bringing a perspective, a Sagittarius to this? Am I bringing something to this, or is there a genuine repeated pattern, like the Jupiter effect of like, I've clogged, you've done this, or this has happened to me however many times, and I have enough information, I have enough to make a decision about what is safe or what is dangerous, or who I want to belong to or who I don't want to belong to. Yeah. And I think for Cancer, because Cancer is the second house, it's Gemini. So it supports Gemini. It is Cancer because Geminis need to be in their body. It's very important because you will forget that you will even have one.
Yes.
And
Words for dinner.
so when that hunger comes up, listening to hunger cues, trusting your body. So this is to me like um, kind of like how you want to gain control of um, like yourself and your body through separation, or like you will actually have gained enough information so your body's like, damn, I feel alone, I feel like I don't have anybody type thing. In like the personal sense, I have more interpretations for that, as far as like you were saying about like broader things like consumerism and the coconut woman.
Coconut lady. But
Yeah,
that's a good point. I like how you said that, trying to gain control over your body through separation.
yeah.
And then also just thinking about that trine with reception. So
Oh,
Mars and Cancer being in water and also ruling Venus and Scorpio in water. And the body really being, I mean, we always talk about the body, and sometimes I feel like that gets to be kind of vague, but it's very literal, like you were saying, like actually listening to your hunger cues instead of ignoring them. Like I'm very good at ignoring my hunger cues, and sometimes that actually feels good to me. This is an eating disorder thing, but it feels good to me because usually, like, I feel, my stomach is in knots, or I feel like a little bit nauseous because of whatever, all the stress and anxiety that I carry in my body. So to actually feel hungry feels good in the sense of like, okay, I know what this feeling is and like what it means. And then eventually I like will take that too far and then not actually eat. And then I start to feel like shit. And now I got the headache and feeling nauseous again. Like, am I nauseous because I didn't eat? Or, then you eat and then you feel not like that whole thing. And so getting into like the habit of just listening the first time, or sometimes like preempting, like, okay, I know I usually get hungry around this time. Let me just go ahead and get started cooking or something so that it's already ready
yeah,
instead of waiting past the point or trying to decipher if something is a hunger cue versus something else. It can get very confusing. So, um,
yeah. And I also think, because like you said, just the body, saying your body can be kind of vague, but like you said, it is very literal, and all the water signs are different aspects of the function of your body. And so like the Cancer part is gaining control, or like your body actually being in control of you, is a better way to
yeah,
describe it.
controlling yourself.
And so like identifying with like your bodily functions and what they do, um, like is going to be really important for getting like needs met, in the form of like, is this who I should be, or what I should be engaging in, or what I shouldn't be. Like it's giving really like a lot of help for things, to be honest, to me. um
I mean, I
Thanks.
think this time of the year as well too, as if the health things haven't ended, but especially this time of the year when allegedly it starts getting colder. That hasn't happened here yet. I was just at the pool today
It's
in Texas.
at all either.
Somewhere it allegedly gets cold and people spend more time indoors and all crammed together. Um, but I don't know about that life out here. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I think another thing too, maybe another way to describe this, when you mention like Scorpio as threat detection, because I think the same thing. I think of Scorpio as being like the home alarm system, where every time you open a door, you do beep beep beep. And I think I've described that on a live before, but there's like, and I see people in the chat kind of talking about this. Like, I use Emissa's comment as an example. Low key, this is why it took me so long to know how gay I am. I'd feel the spark with men and was told my whole life that that's what I'm supposed to want. Turns out the spark was my body saying alert, right? So then there's that question of like, okay, I this when this feeling comes up in my body in a relationship, um, how do I know that? How do I know if it's just me? Because we talked about Scorpio blaming themselves, and how do I know that it's something about this other person or the relationship? And what I usually say is like, well, not what I usually say, but what I think about, because it is very hard to tell. Like in all relationships, whether they're quote safe for us or not, they're going to trigger us in some kind of a way because that's just the nature of being in relationship. And so, like, kind of always listening to that in the same way that we're talking about listening to hunger cues or whatever it is, like still listening to whatever that feeling is, but instead of responding to it in the same way that you would if you knew for sure this was a threat, then the curiosity piece comes in where you kind of learn how to offer the emotional experience you're having, um like holding in your mind that it is a reality that you feel this way, but being open to the context that that feeling exists in, I guess. So, um, instead of automatically assuming, oh, I have this feeling this person must be bad for me, like maybe that's true, or maybe there is something going on between the both of you where in previous situations you're not able to vocalize whatever that disturbance is for you. And so the longer you're holding on to it, the more it builds up. And now it feels like this big, insurmountable thing. When in reality, maybe you needed different language to communicate to the other person the experience that you were having so that you could actually like sort through or pinpoint whatever it is that is coming up. Because I feel like that's the whole point of, not the whole point of trauma, that's not what I mean, but the body remembering is so that whenever you are in a familiar situation, you can move differently. It doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean the same harm is being inflicted on you in that moment, but something similar where it could maybe get to that point if you don't make a different action, which is the Mars and Cancer part, I think, like actually reclaiming some emotional autonomy to, yes, still advocate for how you're feeling, but also be open to the reality of the situation not necessarily being exactly what you think it is.
Yeah. I think HP put it really succinctly. They said that's where discernment comes in, and discernment is trauma plus current events. Because the whole discernment piece of like that Mars and Gemini part, because this actually just clicked for me that this is literally what I was experiencing this morning.
We love that.
There was a nigga in my bed this morning, and
Period.
um, I was kind of like uncomfortable because it wasn't because like it wasn't like it was an uncomfortable situation. Like it was actually really fucking chill. But I have these ideas of like, oh, I have to entertain, or I have to talk, or I have to whatever. But no, we can just watch Grey's Anatomy and you can go.
You got a Venus.
Ready, right? And it just felt like I don't know, I was internally uncomfortable, but it wasn't like because something was happening. It was more so like there are a lot of other factors that go into a man being in my bed, um, and how other people would feel about a man being in my bed at this current moment in time. So I'm like, this is me reclaiming some kind of emotional autonomy. And so I was like, wow, that feels uncomfortable. That's probably
Mhm.
what feels uncomfortable. So, like you were saying, discerning like what your uncomfortable feelings mean when you want to interact or connect with somebody. Um, yeah, and actually, and I like the way you described Mars and Cancer, like taking the initiative to have emotional autonomy, like, because yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's something I appreciate about Cancer as a sign, as far as the water signs go, is that it is immediate. Like there's some immediacy to that sign that's like,
yeah,
I feel this way right now, and therefore we need to do something about it right now. And I'm like the complete opposite of that. Like I feel this way right now, but I need to sit and think and ruminate and Ten of Swords myself about it until the last possible moment when I can't stand it anymore, and then I do something. And it's like, we ain't got time for that. Like there's a limit on life and suffering. And so um I think adding into the like sometimes directness or quickness or cutting through the bullshitness of Mars in Cancer is like, do something about this now. Don't wait.
right,
Yeah.
right, like making your dissatisfaction like a lot more apparent and a lot more urgent.
Child, yes. And my dad has that placement in the first house with the Aries moon on the midheaven.
Yeah, yeah, that makes yeah,
Opposite Saturn and Capricorn still though, alas. We're all plagued with Capricorn placements in my family, but it shows itself in that way that like he is very um he's not like super emotionally expressive, but whenever he is, like it all comes out and we all feel it kind of thing. And so um I think that's also because Mars and Cancer has something in common with Scorpio, not just the water thing, but Mars in water specifically, is
right,
something that it has in common with Mars and Scorpio, which Mars would be in domicile in that case. And I think the control piece, like you mentioned, is the difference. Like actually doing something with your discomfort instead of simply running away and hiding, like Scorpio would rather do.
yeah,
There's a little bit more imposition, I think, that happens with that placement where, no, if I'm uncomfortable, we're all going to be uncomfortable. Actually, I'm going to bring this whole bitch down with me.
yeah, yeah. That's very Mars and Scorpio too, because my dad has that placement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They both have a way of, if I feel this way, we all feel this way because the nature of water and feeling each other's
right.
feelings and all that kind of stuff. Time because I need to know what level of upset I need to be because my first mind is to blow up everything. Yeah, another
So
some Mars dominant energy because I'm kind of that way too. Like, especially if I feel because my Scorpio stuff being ruled by Mars and Leo, so right next to Cancer, but Cancer being in the 12th, it's
yeah,
like if I feel like somebody is trying to make me look ridiculous, trying to humble or humiliate me, or try to disrespect me in this particular way that I feel indignant, then like we all gotta die. Me and you gotta go down together um, at the same time, and I gotta blow the whole thing up. But I've learned to not do that because the point is to maintain the relationship. Like everything doesn't have to go to shit just because this one thing happened. But whenever you have a big reserve of all of these one little things that happened that I never said anything about, and then one is the straw that breaks the camel's back, now all of a sudden we got to atone for all of the sins of the last however many months that I just thought my way out of it. And
yeah,
that's not healthy either. Don't be like me, friends.
yeah. No, I feel like because I'm still Venus dominant, I'm the opposite. More because Scorpio is in my second house, so it is supportive to the solution. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You said it's supportive. In what way? What do you mean?
Because it's the second house. I was listening to the Chris Brennan Astrology podcast. He's doing episode on all the houses,
Oh, okay.
and I was listening to the second house one. And he was like, it's basically like, he's talking about like the materials, things, and whatnot. But I found it interesting that the way he was talking about the way that the second house is what like support, because you can't live without your You can't live without food. You can't live without nourishment. You can't live without these things. So it's kind of like the things that are essential to your sustainability
Yeah,
in your life, basically. Um, and Scorpio is essential to sustaining my life because as a Libra with prominent Venus, very much so in the face of Mars things like anger, dealing with your anger and rage. Like I have to conceal it or pretend like it doesn't exist, or channel it.
everything's fine.
Right? Or like somebody else has the anger. 7th house Aries. I don't get to have the anger. So um, for me, it's like fawning, I think is the word that I would use, is using those terms.
Totally.
Um, and so, like, the emotional boundaries of knowing how to distinguish myself from somebody else and what they've got going on, but because I too am initially like you're on me, you have to die. Like that's simply what has to happen.
Somebody gotta die.
Like somebody has to die, somebody has to clean up the murder and because but it's the supportive piece is that like having fulfilling relationships like the Libra of like we can all agree that if we can all agree that this thing or like we want to treat each other a certain way, this accountability piece. Like you will have a lot more fulfilling relationships. So like Mars being supportive to Venus again type thing. Um, oh, exactly. So you can never hurt me again. I don't never breathe again. Actually,
That's wild. So Netta and HP are having a good conversation that I wanted to bring up with this as well, because I was thinking about anxious and avoidant attachment styles, which I don't like to describe them that way, but usually one person in a relationship is going to hold one end of the pole and one is going to hold the other in terms of who is more of the pursuer and who is more of the withdrawer or protector, self-protector. And so Scorpio is usually more the withdraw, distancer type, and Venus, Venus, Taurus, Libra, whoever is a little bit more pursuer, which you would think it'd be the other way, right? Like you would think Mars pursues and seeks out, but it really doesn't. Mars is more defend, protect, sometimes attack. If they're pursuing, they're coming to beat your ass, not to connect you. So, um, but I think it can also be true, that Mars likes a challenge in that sense of pursuit. But I wouldn't necessarily say Mars. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll come back to that. So Netta's talking about my recent ex and I had this issue. I like to talk through things as quick as possible because if I let it sit, everything will burn. My ex doesn't like to bring things up at all, but will be mad. And I think that was it in
oh my
that.
god, same.
Yeah. Okay. And so yeah, same. I mean, and like I'm saying, all of us for the most part will have some level of this just because of how we're raised, our temperament, and we're usually attracted to people different than us, right? So talking about Mars and Venus and Scorpio, and learning how to sit through the discomfort of connection. Like another thing that I thought about as you were saying that, because I also struggle with this, ironically, really bad, is I also like to talk through things as quick as possible because, yeah, sitting with the discomfort, which for me is really like the uncertainty of how the rest of this argument's going to play out. Am I going to be believed? Am I going to get to say my side of things? Am I going to have to just lay down and die? Like the anxiety of, will my side, again, my emotional reality, be able to take up space in this conflict?
Mhm.
Would feel like if we it would partially feel like I need to insert it now, like Mars and Leo things, I need to take up space in that sense. And if I let it wait too long, like because it burns so much, then eventually I just stop. I'm just like over it. I don't want to rehash it. I don't want to go back into it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I don't want to reopen it because once I'm over it, then it gets stored somewhere and then we'll have to deal with it in, you know, 10 to 15 business days, which is not great either. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. But all of that to say, like that brought up what you mentioned earlier about learning how to sit with a discomfort of sometimes, like, if you are more of the anxious slash pursuer type, like in conflict or in disagreement, like sometimes you actually owe yourself a second to really sit and feel what you're feeling, and that's usually something that avoidant distancer type people can show us, is that, like, yeah, sometimes trying to deal with it quickly just to relieve our discomfort is not always the answer, because there's probably more there's probably more that we could actually like sit with and be with ourselves, instead of just immediately trying to squash the drama and like not let there be this ongoing tension. There's a sweet spot between the two.
Right. Why am I in it? Why? Yeah, my ex is the exact same way. Because whenever we get in a disagreement, I'll be like, "Oh, we need to discuss. We need to talk about this right now. We need to make it better. We need to, And then he'd be like, no, actually, well, no, I need to actually know how I feel first." Um,
Yep.
yeah, he's Libra moon, heavy with Aries, so it was very much like, well, okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was uncomfortable and I needed to relieve that discomfort. Like you said, like immediately, doing that isn't necessarily the right thing all the time.
Yeah, but it's hard, like you said, like if because me and Emilia were that way, right? Like Emilia very much needed a minute, and sometimes a much longer minute than I could tolerate, and then that turned into its own set of issues. But when I say there's like a happy space, like I'm laughing at what HP is saying. I'm in a relationship with someone who wants to talk in the moment, and I've gotten to a place of talking in the moment like they want, and now they realize why I wait. I hear this from Mars dominant people a lot, like in kind of a mirror that's been held up to me because I have so many other Mars dominant people in my life, where like even for myself, like me talking about it in the moment, like feels like an opportunity to exercise the anger I don't usually get to experience. And so if I and so if I wait and let it pass for too long, the anger part of it is gone. And then I feel like I'm a little too easily persuaded. So I like swing to the other end of the pendulum. And so it's like it can be very all or nothing, which is funny. That's actually a card pool that I got today. I'm gonna have to think about now. But the sweet spot is really like, because there are also times too where like if that moment passes where I'm not angry anymore, then it's hard for me to bring it back up later, because now I'm like, well, I don't want to start shit, like I don't want to bring up old shit or whatever. Um, and so but all of that to say, like, yeah, realizing that the reason more avoidant people need the break, or need a minute to process or to collect or to regulate or whatever it is usually because there was no space for their feelings in their upbringing. There
Mm.
was usually someone talking over them, or them being responsible for somebody else's feelings, caregivers feelings, whatever. There was no room for their feelings in the first place. So while those of us on more of the anxious side are very quick to articulate how we feel, we might not actually be feeling how we feel. And then people on the other end of the spectrum may not have the language for how they feel, but all the feelings are there. So it's just going to come out how it comes out. And you'll have to deal with the consequences of that if you don't want to give a break. So usually, like a good, half hour to an hour pause for everyone to come down and speak from the front part of their brain is more beneficial for everybody, because it's just enough time to come down, like an hour max, more if you need it, whatever works in your relationship, but some agreed upon time, so that both people get time to take space, but both people also know that you're going to come back together, which is the whole Venus needs Mars, Mars needs Venus thing in the conflict cycle.
Yeah, and I think that actually mirrors like, the whole Ten of Swords thing, because the whole point of like
Yeah.
in a sign is that like Venus wants to connect, Venus wants to find similarities, Venus wants to have these pleasurable experiences if we get each other, we're the same or we're not. But like the whole like Ten of Swords part of it being in Scorpio is that like you have to deal with things that are uncomfortable in order to find those things that you're uh, like find that common ground or that consensus or whatnot. Because I forget, like finding the connecting through discomfort or the way that you described it. Like I thought that was a really succinct way to talk about it, because the whole like, and again, the whole cancer part of like we immediately need to find out why this is happening so we could Venus, like we need to um, but the whole point of like a planet in a sign is that in order to Venus you must Mars first, if that's the placement type thing. So like the beneficial aspect of having emotional differences and boundaries is that like you can have a holistic relationship where you actually know somebody and not the facade they put up.
Ooh.
I heard myself with one.
That's so real. Like, that's one thing that I learned in the relationship mastery part of the course that I took, where I was doing it for myself, because I could never fully understand like why I kept getting in the cycle I kept getting in, which felt like, as much as I was the person pursuing conflict, I was also the person who felt like I didn't have a voice once the conflict got started, because I'm making all this room for the other person's feelings and not knowing how to let my feelings actually take up space in a way that's like actually communicating what I need or how I feel. And it was kind of like a combination of, yeah, making myself the problem, but also not actually not actually being authentic with how I feel, authentic emotional
Right.
expression, was something I think about with Scorpio a lot now more, because it would feel like it is a way, especially for Venus, I think, of managing other people's feelings. I think all water signs do this in their own way, but Venus in particular is like, but if I tell you how I really feel or what I really need or whatever it is, um, that might upset you. And I
Right.
don't want to upset you, because then that might be a threat to the relationship, or you might see me as a threat, or I'm going to be the problem. And again, it goes back to that belief that I have personally, that people are not going to be accommodating of my feelings for
Mhm.
whatever reason, because they're too much, they're too complicated, they're too this, too that. And the relationship podcast I was listening to earlier was like, that's a lot of the reason why we don't speak up about how we actually authentically feel or what we authentically need in a moment, is because it does open us up to rejection. It does open up the other person to say, yeah, I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. So it's making me think about Mars and Cancer again,
Yeah.
of, sometimes like well, it's making me think about Mars and Cancer again, maybe from a different angle, but just this idea that um, emotional authenticity does separate you from other people, to say that, like, my needs are different than your needs, or, and I think you said that earlier, my feelings are different than your feelings.
Mhm.
My side of this conflict or disagreement is different than yours, and that doesn't mean that yours is wrong. I think a lot of times, we want to be right, and so it turns into a I'm right or you're right thing, instead of, like you said with Libra and consensus, both of us have a role in this or an experience in this.
Right. Yeah.
What's the common thread that's the actual, like, larger issue, considering the context versus like the minutia or the content of the argument or whatever it is that we're having.
Yeah. And I think the think about another aspect of Mars signs is that like how you handle conflict, which is what I feel like is a major
For
thing that we
sure.
talk about um, this whole time. And so like with Mars and Gemini, like you were saying, like the need to be right about like what hurt, and like the need to be right, or your emotional narrative to take up the most space. Like that's something that I had to, that was my most toxic thing ever, was like I just needed, like I needed you to know that what I was saying was the right version of events. Especially because this is like my fucking sign, my fucking planet. So very much like you said the other day, like pointing the finger. um like like the words that I'm saying, like I am dictating, like I have control over the narrative of this conflict is kind of what um, it felt like I was using in my how I dealt with conflict. Um, but this Scorpio aspect of it is like it's really supportive. Again, supportive to me because like the whole point of emotional differences is that niggas feel things differently.
Exactly.
Like, is that niggas feel things differently. And so like when you like you said, when you really get into the minutia of like the larger patterns, the Jupiter of it, of like what did we both experience? What did you experience that I did not? What did I experience that you did not? Like I think that's really
Yes.
important in like navigating like how you're gonna like again make that agreement of like we agree to connect on these terms of um like you can connect on these terms of like I'm gonna feel differently than you at some points. So
Exactly.
you're gonna are you still gonna be good.
I mean, that's tea though, and I mean going back to this whole like Venus and water signs thing, I think there is like this, it's a false sense of safety that like, oh well, if we all feel the same way, then it's safe. Like, if you never have a different feeling, different thought, different something than the person that you with, somebody lying. Like, I'm sorry, somebody's lying. We are way too nuanced and complex as
Story.
individuals that is either somebody lying or somebody just doesn't know themselves very well, and both, can be true based on based on the context that you're coming from, because some people really don't know themselves very well, and so they do kind of just take on the thoughts and the feelings and the whatever else of the other person. But something interesting about just relationships in general is that like we will find a way to differentiate, and I was thinking about that too with this placement, Venus and Scorpio. Like at some point we're going to find a way to differentiate, because we have to know who we are, which is why I love what HP said here. If you sit in the discomfort, maybe you can discern what feelings are yours or mine. Instead of processing that with me, process yourself first and give me what's mine and keep what's yours. And so what I was thinking about, like, because this is very Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio to me is like, my feelings are mine and your feelings are yours. And there's no like moral judge or well, yeah, there's no like moral judgment on whose feelings are right or wrong or true or false. I feel like that gets into some mutable territory, but it's just a reality that like Scorpio, I realize, very much does not want to feel other people's feelings, whereas like Pisces, kind of mixing it up a little bit. I'm like usually feeling and reading into somebody else's feelings or behaviors, and that can take them away from themselves. And then Cancer sometimes is maybe feeling their own feelings and then making it everybody else's problem. I don't know. thinking about like thinking about well, I'll leave that where it's at and then we can debate it. But thinking about how Scorpio really is like, I don't I just don't feel the way that you feel, and like standing on that, because that's something I experience a lot too. A lot of times I may not vocalize it, but especially when I was younger, it would be a lot of situations where I'm like, I just don't feel like that, but I feel like I'm wrong for not feeling that way. Or it could be the case that like I'm, afraid of something or worried about something, or I have a concern that nobody else shares. And so now I look unreasonable or unrealistic or something. And so then I'm like, well, I'll just keep that to myself. But if I were to adopt how everybody else feels, that feels like a threat to me. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a Venus and Scorpio thing I think about too, is like, I can stay here in the room with y'all physically, but emotionally,
Yeah. I think Cancer is like we all have feelings. And then Pisces is like you have feelings. And then Scorpio's like I have feelings.
interesting.
But it's like very true in that sense of that like Scorpio's like I have my own feelings that you don't have. Like somebody who's had their leg amputated, I can't feel what they feel inside. Like I can't feel that.
Yeah, I will never know what that feels like.
Don't know what that's like, and they have their own set of experiences and feelings that make what's going on inside their body distinctly different from like what's going on inside of mine. Like that's that whole like the whole Mars thing of like the individuality. Like we are all separate people. Like we all have separate vessels. We all have separate vessels and constitutions, and like that's what physically separates us. Um, and like the water aspect of Mars, that like we have different like emotional responses and triggers.
Hmm.
And so like when you really know your uh, emotional responses and triggers, you could yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that immediately made me think about the whole responsibility thing we were talking about with cardinal signs, and like your triggers are your responsibility. And like I used to not like when people said that, but now I get it in the sense that like because that was another thing I used to be really bad about in relationships that I'm like painfully embarrassed about. But it was like almost wanting my partners to handle me with like kid gloves. Like I'm so small and dainty and sensitive. Don't do anything to trigger me, please. Because that's just what I thought I was supposed to do. I don't know. I didn't know how to deal with all of the relationship trauma that I had, and then it was just like becoming too much for my partners to deal with. And it wasn't until girl that I dated in 2021 who who I was in love with, but she eventually did break up with me, and we tried to stay friends, but it took like there was also her part of like not advocating for herself and her needs, Cancer, Venus rising, Libra moon. But when we did finally like get into the conflict of me just like trying to understand where this decision came from, she did finally say that like, it always felt like I was trying to manage your triggers because you are sensitive, like not in a bad way, but you are sensitive and I don't want to like set you off. And I was like, oh, because I'd kind of been told some version of that before, but it always came off real bad. That made it seem like kind of gaslighty or like, whatever it was that I was feeling or that I was onto was valid. Because like a lot of times I'd be trying to point something out and then turns out homegirl is cheating. She got something going on with some dude behind the back. Like there was something going on. So if I tried to point it out, they're like, it's not that deep. You're making it a big deal, whatever. But then to get into this relationship and it's just like, no, I just felt like a lot of responsibility for your feelings and I didn't know how to handle it. And I was like, oh, well, damn, I didn't want to make you responsible for all of my feelings. I thought I was just trying to tell you like the internal experience that I was having. I wasn't like trying to make you have to do something about it, but I can see how it did feel like, you are having to like contort yourself in all of these ways to like keep me chill, basically. The whole time, the irony of that being the whole time I wasn't chill because I could tell she was doing that, but I couldn't figure out why she was doing that.
Yeah.
So it's like very tricky.
Yeah. I think that goes back to like your uh, feelings being the problem. Oh, oh yo.
That's so real. I'd be like, why are you doing that? Be yourself. Why are you never mad at me? It was just I never could understand. And then I was like, oh. Anyway, didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh, no, that was funny. Not funny, but
it was a little funny.
Um, it was just making me think about that whole like Scorpio thing of like your feelings are the problem in the relationship, and that um like your differences can be managed type thing. Like they can be um yeah, yeah, like it's me. Problem, it's me. Yeah. Really though, that's really what it be feeling like, especially since I've been Scorpio rising this year, because I am not a fixed girl. Like I am not like a
It's true.
little bit, but like like my identity, like everybody knew that I was gay. I actually asked my mom this. Um, It was actually I actually asked my mom this. I was like, "So, how did you know I was gay?" um, and she was like, "Well, a little bit of motherly intuition, but also I swear to God, this is what she said. The only fixed placements I have are Jupiter and Saturn, and Taurus. So
Yeah,
this,
way out there planets.
yeah. So she was like, so back in the day, like back then, like there was a such thing as you were either a boy or a girl." Dead ass. And she's like, and you always like the things that the girls liked, like the like like the dolls. Like you never liked like my sister liked basketball. My sister was obsessed with basketball, but they didn't I don't know. But like she was like, you were always, I don't know, like dressing up and like dancing or whatnot. Um and so um I forgot my point while I was telling the story. But
I think you were maybe going to talk about you being the problem or something like that. I don't know. That's how we got here.
oh, um,
Your feelings being the problem and you having Scorpio rising this year.
I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
um, yeah, so she was like, "That's how I knew because you were just basically like the things I was into." And so like this year, because I have been Mars rising for a long time, I have just been making them really uncomfortable. uh, just like by the nature of like, well, one, because my dad is gone, just another point of like Mars being separation and having like emotional and physical distance from somebody, to like actually feel how you feel about a situation, like having that space like we talked about, to discern what feelings are yours versus somebody else's. um but I've been making them uncomfortable by like actually like engaging with it. Because I was very like, no, I don't like y'all. Like y'all are a threat to me and everything that I stand for and my whatever. But since like the pros of not being around like my family all the time, having to have them in my house by proxy of my dad, because he would just always have people in our house all the time. Like he just loves to barbecue, loves to whatever, which is great until
Throwing something on the grill.
no, like just niggas in your house all the time. Like even in my fucking lives, there just be in the background. Things. Um, but yeah, they've been like, wow, you really opened up to, you know, being around us. So like the whole point of emotional separation and autonomy building, you know, emotional resilience from, you know, painful situations from the past. But
Yeah.
also like shaping your character with how you deal with uncomfortable feelings in relationships is what I feel like I've been dealing with a lot this year. Yeah.
Yeah, like actually letting your differences take up space and being yourself in a way that maybe either did make people uncomfortable or that you anticipated might make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I'm like Venus down. Like in my house when I was growing up, it was very much so like we are this is us. You know, we have our roles. My sister takes me to school every morning. We have a routine. Everything flows like a system. We all agree this is what's about to happen every day. Even though, like, you know, um, it's emotional turmoil all the time, but nobody wants to acknowledge it type thing. The whole
Yeah.
Venus, because the whole like there's uncomfortable feelings all the time inside of relationships, and so like being Venus dominant is like there is no uncomfortable feeling. There are none. Uncomfortable
Everybody
feeling-
here is fine. Everything's
Yeah,
fine. Don't come in here and disrupt what we got going on. Like through clenched teeth. You're like, are you sure everything's fine?
no, literally. Oh, Venus and Libra.
I wondered, yeah, when you were saying, and anytime I hear the word justified or even fair, I'm like, that's giving Libra. Where you got Libra?
No, literally, as a Libra rising, I feel so deeply because it's literally like you have to be like, oh, this is fine. I see the Aries happening. I see it. I see it happening, but it's very much so like the gift with the dog and the room was on fire.
Yes.
This is fine, because you have to reason with people, because there is no like they you have to reason with people who have, well, my parents, the people who have power over you, because without them it seems like you will die.
Yeah. Well, and even then too, like it's like I don't know, it's been really hard for me to because I have a similar thing. I don't know if it's exactly the same, although I do have the North Node in Libra. Um, but it does feel like there's a question. I guess for me, maybe it's more of a question from the Gemini perspective of like almost wondering if what I'm feeling is about something that's actually happening.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's like I question myself of like, did I just see what I saw? It's kind of like that, or like, is that, am I tripping? Like, I always turn it back on myself as like, maybe I'm misunderstanding this person when it's like, maybe I am, or maybe I am actually like picking up on something that's going on that isn't being talked about. And so I want to talk about it because I'm like, I don't, it doesn't necessarily, well, I won't say that. It's not totally innocent, but it is like sometimes I genuinely want to know because I'm noticing a pattern shift or like something is different
Yeah,
versus like how things usually are. And I like want to know, I want to understand, I want to know what's going on for the other person because like clearly something has changed or they're going through something. And my one of my worst issues with that is I'll make it about me and it's probably not about me. But I
yeah,
again thinking I'm the problem, I've done something when really the other person might be experiencing something, especially if I'm dealing with people who don't always have language for their feelings. I'm
yeah.
probably picking up on their behavior changing and they don't know how to articulate that yet. Whereas I'm a person who, even if I don't fully know or have processed what's going on, I can talk through it. It's a Gemini thing that, yeah, because I know you got Jupiter and Gemini.
Ah, tough.
Um, but yeah, so sometimes I'm like, I get frustrated with that in other people if they can't talk through the thoughts that they're having or whatever because they may not even manifest as thoughts for them. It might just be a reaction they notice that they have but don't know how to talk about or whatever it is. Whereas for me, I'm like, I can tell when I'm starting to act different, and even if I don't know why, speak to that. um and I think that's intimidating sometimes to other people because then they feel like
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm low key the opposite. Maybe it's because I'm a Sagittarius. Let me stop calling it that.
it's just rolls off the tongue.
Let
What
me
do you mean by
stop
that?
calling it that. Because I feel like I just assign judgment, and I
Oh.
manipulate.
That's a
about when,
good point.
um, about when I feel something is off, or especially in my romantic relationships. Um, like if I feel like you're not, well, especially because my partner was a Sagittarius rising, it didn't help. This that I was usually correct with my Sagittarius mom, but um, but no, I definitely feel that because like the curiosity of uh actually wanting to let the other person have a chance to explain what is going on is important, instead of uh depending on what they've done in the past to dictate how they feel in the present.
Yeah, or like writing the story for them.
Right, yeah.
'Cause I would do some of that too when it goes long enough that nobody answers me or doesn't want to tell me what's going on. Then the Scorpio suspicion kicks in. Scorpio Jupiter suspicion kicks in and is like, well, last time I was in a situation like this and this and this and this happened, or God forbid I get input from somebody more paranoid than me, and then they insert a story, and now we've done created a whole entire narrative that is not what's actually going on. I've definitely done that many times and had to get out of certain friendships that were enabling that behavior. So
Yeah,
withholding judgment has become a much better skill for maintaining relationships than trying to
it definitely is.
impose a narrative, because people, you really can write a whole story that is not what's actually going on and then move based off of that, and then the other person is like, what are
Ask,
you doing?
ask me how I know. So, what do you think about this Scorpio versus not versus, but um, the relationship that these planets will have with Aquarius?
Ooh, oh, that was loud. Also being mindful because I need to leave and go to my parents' house in like 10-ish minutes.
Okay.
Um, with Aquarius, I don't fully, just because I have it in my own chart, I feel too close to it. The
Real.
relationship between literally Saturn and Aquarius with Venus and Jupiter in Scorpio, like, I know the main way that that's manifested has been me thinking that my feeling, like, no one's going to understand or see or feel or whatever where I'm coming from, whatever it is that I feel, and so I just keep it to myself and go isolate. Um and so that's what I think about the Scorpio imposing itself on Aquarius thing, but with Saturn itself being an Aquarius, that feels like actually learning language to describe what I'm feeling and how to well, well, no, I think it's some of that. Maybe it's more, I think there's actually like a separation from my feelings that I get from Saturn and Aquarius that like allows multiple realities to be true. So like
Mm,
it's not just because I'm thinking from the perspective of my Jupiter in Scorpio. It's like it's not just my perspective or my story of reality that exists. Like there are plenty of other realities that can exist beyond just what I think my body is telling me. So being able to decide in a way to tell myself a different story and therefore make different decisions in my relationships, there feels like something in there. Like there's a little bit more like not making it about me kind of thing that happens that says like, I don't have to carry the burden of shame or making my feelings bad or wrong or the problem in the relationship. It's really just like, well, this is who I am and this is how I feel.
right.
And those things are allowed to exist and take up space. They don't have to dominate the space. They don't have to push out other feelings and be so like self-protective and self-preserving in this way that nothing else is allowed. But
Yeah.
there's a little bit more openness, I think, that I have with Saturn being in Aquarius than otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what I think about it as well. Like this like this movement of like seeing a lot of people who have been erased, like
Yeah.
people who are take COVID seriously, like they're like being recognized, Palestine having a platform for these things. So I think about it as like seeing yourself as part of groups who you are not like identify with.
I like that.
Yeah, because the whole Taurus Scorpio is like us and them. So if you're like not a part of a people, like you don't really necessarily need to, belong there or care about what it takes to belong there. So um yeah, that's one thing I think about it. And also just not just not. Um the I think the coconut lady will upset her audience. She'll show them again. She'll be like, "You better shut up." I know Trump is
Space-seeking.
president. Yeah, I don't. Well, whatever.
I like that you shared that from the Taurus perspective too, like seeing yourself a part of groups that you are not, that you maybe otherwise wouldn't identify with.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good one too, because obviously I don't have Libra. I mean, I don't have Libra, but I don't have a Taurus, and then you not having Scorpio. So I like that we are opposing Jupiters.
yeah. Yes, that's why I wanted to do this today. I don't. like I said, I don't have much fixed in my life. My identity is not really a big feature to me. It
Yeah.
was to them, but it's not to me.
It was to everybody but me.
Right. So, and I don't really get a chance to talk about fixed signs a lot. I feel like I'm always just cardinal mutable. Mm-mm.
I love that. Well, you know me, I'm good for a fixed sign conversation. That's mostly what I got over here.
And that's on your relationships, filling out what you don't have.
Period. Oh, yes. Oh, well, this was fun. I feel like we had a nice little chat. Do you feel like you said everything you needed to say?
I do. I feel like this was so cute. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Hey, thank you for volunteering to come on. You definitely gave a lot of insights and perspectives that were meaningful to me, and I'm sure meaningful to folks in the chat because it was popping. Um, and it was great to see what y'all kind of threw in as well, and that this was resonating because yeah, it seems like we were all living similar experiences, and probably why we all found each other here. So, um, yeah, I'm curious to see how this all plays out over the next month or so. Venus moving through Scorpio and Mars changing signs and Mercury moving around and all that other shit. So we will have to check back in and do a little follow up situation or something when it's all over.
All right.
Okay.
Bingo.
Well,
Yeah, that was great.
yay, this was fun. All right. Well, for anybody watching the replay, thank you for hanging out this long and for listening and chatting with us. Thank you to everyone in the chat who pulled up and hung out with us live. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. If you are watching this later, my books are open. If you would like a reading, Semaj also does readings, and their books are open for tarot and astro. Um, Anything else? Anything else? I don't know. I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow, probably.
Yes. Yes.
Turn your notifications on so you know whenever I go live, and
Yeah.
I will see y'all later.
Peace.
Bye. Cue the outro music.
Exactly. Come on,
Oh,
Rob.
I did it at the end of the track, so now it's started
Thank
over.
you.
Yeah, there we go.